Hi, my name is Dan Zeilinger, and I have been a world-traveling full-time trad jazz musician for the past 40 years. Some of my most memorable performances were on the lawn of the Edinburgh Castle, at Imperial Palace in Japan, as well as TV shows and commercials across the world. I've met many people during my career and have spent many hours on stage and off with these musicians, talking about jazz, life, and more. Some are touring musicians, some are theme park warriors, and some are casual musicians who play on the weekends with friends. I think they all have stories worthy of a movie script, and through these interviews, I'll be sharing them with you. Hi, this is Dan Zeilinger from Trad Jazz Today, and my guest is a staple of Orange County trad jazz scene. Has been one of the trumpet players with South Frisco Jazz Band. He's got his own band, Titanic Jazz Band now, that I've been fortunate enough to sit in with on occasion. Played with just everybody between San Francisco and San Diego and further. My friend, Dan Comins. Hello, Dan. You like that intro? Was that fair for you?
Yeah, that's where what it's all about.
The first question I am asking everybody is, where were you born?
I was born in Concord, Massachusetts.
Okay. Did you start playing there?
I started, as so many of us have, is in elementary school, having to pick up a horn and having to choose an instrument. Mine was a little bit different, as I had a medical condition that known as asthma.
Me too. I'm kind of losing your audio a little bit. I don't know if it's signal or.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I backed away from the microphone too much.
Okay.
Move closer. I still have the asthma today, and one of the great therapies for working with asthma is blowing a horn.
Yep. I was born in 54, a month premature with asthma and pneumonia, and my doctor is the reason I got started playing.
Yeah, mine too. They said I had asthma when I was about 6, 7 years old. They said, give a kid a horn. And I wanted to play trombone, but I was so small that I couldn't.
Oh, no. You couldn't get to third position.
I could get to third, but I couldn't get to 7, 6 to 7. He gave me the cornet, said, here, go. And I've been playing it ever since.
So trumpet and cornet were your first instruments, right? You playing others?
Oh, just the brass family. I mess with the flugelhorn, and I have a peckhorn. I picked up the peckhorn when I subbed for Jackie Kuhn.
Sure.
So I've got an E-flat King peckhorn. That's basically it. That's enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, those E-flat horns are I think the Devil's Workshop, personally, they're some of the hardest things to get in tune in the world.
That plus, well, there's been some good. Jackie Kuhn didn't have a problem with it. He played it good.
The English brass band seemed to do okay too, but
right.
So, where did you? So you went through the school system. Did you have any jazz influence back then?
Oh yeah, I had tons of jazz influence, and I'm proud to say that my dad played with the Eddie Condon band. He was a sub for Eddie Condon back in the 50s.
I didn't realize that.
And he packed me up with my mom and drive to Condon's from Concord. It's about a 3-hour drive, and put me on Pete Pesky's table. And his wife would be manning the cash register, and I'd sleep on a pallet on the floor underneath the cash register while they played.
So they would literally make you a pallet on the floor.
Literally. Yeah.
Wow, talking about having deep roots.
I honestly don't remember that because I was so little. But my pseudo uncle was my dad's best friend was Ralph Sutton, and Ralph came and lived with us for about 18 months, but he was going through his first divorce with Helen, and I got to watch him practice every day.
Wow.
It was an experience that I'll never forget. The man was an incredible talent. And I still to this day, if he were alive, still to this day, I call him Uncle Ralph, because that's what I called him growing up. And I've got pictures in family albums of me sticking them up with a cap gun and stuff like that. And what amazed me about Ralph was his hands were so big.
I had no idea.
He put his hand up like this in front of his face and completely cover his face. You couldn't huge hand. He could hit 12s like I hit. That's what gives him his, part of what gives him his sound. The fact that he had such strong, big hands.
That's interesting. You know, that's what they say about Franz Liszt too. That one of the reasons his arrangements are so difficult was because of that stretch.
Sure.
Amazing. So you started. You were surrounded by jazz from the time you hit the floor running there.
I was, and when Ralph was with the Condon Band and they came to the Savoy Ballroom in Boston, they'd come out to the house after they finished and they'd jam until 3 or 4 in the morning. And I got to meet and know Bill Davison really well, Jack Teagarden really well. Pops Foster would come out. Ed Hall was who my dad subbed with, and I got to know Edmund Hall really well.
Wow.
And I grew up with these guys. They visited our house frequently. I remember one day, Jeff Sutton and I were playing on the front lawn of the Sleeper, and in rolls Brad Gowans and Pee Wee Russell in a car that Brad Gowans had built. It was made out of an F-86 wing tank.
Okay. But yeah, I remember those racers.
Yeah. And they had driven in from Henry on the Hudson going over to see Bobby Hackett on the Cape, and Cape Cod that is. And they were both plastered. They had a gallon of Coke and rum in the back with airplane tubing for straws. Drinking all the way from the Henry on the Hudson to our house. And they stopped to make a pit stop at the house. And Ralph was there at the time too, so they all hung out for a while. But Jeff and I were just wild about the car. It was a crazy car. You couldn't put that on the street today. You know?
Oh, of course not. Yeah. But then again, half that cars from the era would be, you know, if for nothing else. Mm.
55 Ford would be great to have in my backyard right now. But so I had experiences like that all through high school until I went to college, and I continued to play in college. I went to school on a music scholarship out to Iowa, and
now, did you have a jazz band in high school?
I was in a jazz band in high school. I wasn't the leader. It was the first band I was in was called the Concord Junction Golden Redeemer Jazz Band. And there's an album out. My first album, I was 15 at the time. It's called The Saga of the SS Bella the Assabet.
Wow, that's a name.
That's the name of the album. But the SS Bella the Assabet was a riverboat that was built by one of the locals in town. He put a jazz band on it, and it sank. It was for the 4th of July parade on the Assabet River. And the thing sank because they built it on top of canoes with particle board, and they didn't treat the particle board. So, of course, the particle board got wet and just disintegrated after to the Old North Bridge.
That kind of leads you to the same idea as Titanic, doesn't it?
Give you that sinking feeling, yes, indeed.
And so you continued to join and lead jazz bands all the way through high school and college?
And of course, when I got out of school, I was playing in and around Boston as a teenager. My first professional full-time job was at Your Father's Mustache, and in Boston, and then on Cape Cod also.
Okay.
I played with Carl Lunsford, and Rick McWilliams was in the band. You may know Rick; he's a tuba player.
I'm not familiar, but
The tuba player with Paramount right now.
Okay.
And Ronnie Bill, Carl Lunsford was in the band.
Carl Lunsford.
I played with, that leads to the next band I was in. I would join Carl in Pittsburgh with the Maury Wills Soul and Bass Jazz Band, which had Monty Ballou in it, and Carl, fellow on bass by the name of Walter Lantz, not the cartoonist, but same name. Myself and I replaced Ernie Carson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
During the 70s, I made a living replacing Ernie Carson. he was constantly getting fired for one reason or another for whatever band had hired him. And I'd get the phone call, "Hey, Dan, can you come on down to Pittsburgh and replace Ernie?" Which I did, and that lasted 3 years. That was 6 nights a week, 3 years. And then I came out here.
Yeah, well, that was 71. Okay, I'm still losing your audio a little bit, Dan.
Sorry, I'll speak up.
I don't know if I don't know what it is, but it's very so often you're fading in and out when you get too comfortable, probably.
Probably.
So I watched you out here. Now, when you came out here, where did you start, band-wise?
Gosh, I played with David Bourne a lot. I sat in with David, but my first gig was the day after the earthquake in '72. That was we got in the day before that, and I was staying at Bob Raggio's apartment. And Dave Bourne had the gig at Santa Anita Racetrack on the infield.
Uh-huh.
And Al Crown was the trumpet player. And Al Crown at that time was with South Frisco. And so David called up Raggio and said, "I need a trumpet player," because Crown was out of town and couldn't fly in because they closed the airport. So Raggio said, "Hey, he's sitting on my couch." And that afternoon I played at my first gig at Santa Anita Racetrack and met Dave Bourne and worked with Dave up until his passing, really, off and on in various bands. So
Okay.
that was the first gig. And from there, through Raggio, I met Vince Saunders. And Vince, leader of South Frisco, Al Crown had quit, and he needed a cornet player, and I just fell into the job.
Wow.
I was with South Frisco for 26 years.
Right. Well, I know that band was a big influence on my career and listening to you guys and meeting all of you. I mean, I still play with Robbie Rhodes to this day.
I know.
And
Robbie is one of the most feared piano players in the country still.
in a lot of ways.
I've seen Robbie do things with other musicians that absolutely floor them. Like other piano players, you'll just sit down next to them and play piano, four hands, and blow the guys away.
As you know, Robbie gets bored easily.
Yes.
And so we're constantly on a quest for a key. When we have Robbie on the band, it's fun.
Oh yeah, Robbie. After I've been working with Robbie since I moved out here. That's over 40 years now. I played more with him probably than any other piano player, and I've gotten to the point where I can tell when he's going to change key. And I can pretty much tell by his chord progression as he moves into that key change. And Ray Cadd has picked up the same trick. He figures it out pretty quickly too.
I actually have Ray lined up to do one of these interviews, so I'm looking forward to that.
Ray's a great guy, a very talented artist.
Oh yeah.
He's done the covers on our albums. He can sketch whatever you want him to sketch in seconds. He's that fast.
Amazing. Well, I found out that a lot of the trad musicians, there's some interesting threads that run through them all. One of them being trains.
Trains, exactly.
And another one being that a lot of them on their day gigs, if they have day gigs, are high tech and extremely, extremely intelligent, educated people.
Exactly. And I'm an accountant, and one of the things I find, music and accounting and numbers go very close together. The progressions and whatnot are so in music are almost numerical. It's great.
Well, that's where one part you and I part ways, because numbers almost baffle me at times. I'm not. I wish I had a better sense of mathematics and the intricacies than I do. I mean, obviously I have enough to exist from day to day. But for example, when synthesizers first came out, and they started talking about algorithms, and they started, I was completely lost, and it was the business that I was sort of stepping my foot into. Anyway, regardless, that's not my forte, and I don't have any train experience. Yeah, so it's, but those do tend to run through the style. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. Almost everyone I know who's a trad jazz musician is also a train buff, and some of them very heavy duty train buffs. Ray Cadd built his own trains.
Oh yeah, I follow him. Yeah.
And Leon Oakley's huge. His whole backyard is a huge train set. And Leon and I, of course, played together for 26 years or 25 years, and everybody, so many are train buffs.
Well, you and Leon were totally joined mentally.
We were.
You know,
we were sort of cloned at the hip. We were, after a very short period of time, we were able to second guess each other's musical thoughts and follow right along. Whether I was on lead or he was on lead, we still were able to complete the harmony flawlessly, seamlessly. It was amazing.
I agree, especially from an observer standpoint.
Our styles are almost identical. His tone's a little brighter than mine. Mine's a little warmer than his, but that's mostly from the horns, I think, more than anything else. Yeah, I had many years with Leon and many great times, and of course, South Frisco went all over the world. I don't know how many trips we made to Europe, a dozen at least, if not more.
You know, I tried to get Mike Baird to come on and do the show with me, and he says it would be just too much empty airtime and too stressful for him. And I know Mike, and I understand that he's kind of a private, quiet guy, but I love him dearly, and I think you would be a heck of an interview, actually.
I would bet that once you got Mike talking, once you got him started, you'd end up with a fabulous interview, because he's played with most of the real trad New Orleans guys, and he himself has that New Orleans Johnny Dodds style.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We call him in in Titanic. We call Mike Baird Mr. Truth. He plays a lot of notes, but what comes out is just there, and it's like, wow. So yeah, I've known Mike, well, for over 40 years. I played with him for 40 years.
Yeah, I've had a chance to do a handful of casuals with him, and when he's in town, he'll come down and he'll sit in at Cherry Willow at Curly's, and yeah, he's a delightful guy and still an incredible player.
Yes, he is. He's 86 and still playing. Vince Saunders is 86.
I haven't seen Vince since of course Steamers shut down and Dick passed, but I always enjoy playing with Vince too.
Yep, and Vince, of course, is a stickler for chords, and a jazz historian is as good as anybody out there, as far as I'm concerned.
I always found it really difficult to sit between him and Shush, just time wise.
Indeed. Yeah, a lot of memories. I made a list last night because I didn't know what I was going to run into.
Sure.
Since I started playing, I've been involved with over 21 different bands.
Wow.
And some of them for quite a few years. Titanic for one, South Frisco for another. And I subbed with groups that were, well, the Golden Eagle. I subbed with the Golden Eagle. Whenever the cornet player couldn't make it, Dick would call me.
Every time I would talk to Dick about using me as a sub, he'd always ask me the same question, which is, "Can you play 4-beat?" And if anybody's ever played with me knows that I play 4-beat. But it's kind of funny, anyway.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Dick in a while. We used to have a scheduled Monday night football telephone call where we call each other and talk about the game over the telephone for about a half an hour. And I haven't given him a call. I should give him a call just to check in with him. We still touch base with emails and such.
Yeah, I've also had the opportunity as of late, as of the last 2 years, to do quite a few gigs with Keith Elliott. And he's fun to be around.
Excellent trombone player. He knows exactly what the instrument's supposed to do in a trad band, where a lot of people don't. But Keith, I listen to the playbacks we've recorded and whatnot, and I listen to his lines, and boy, they're right on the money. He's not stepping on anybody's toes, and he's just has that sixth sense of picking out the right note.
Now, was one of your big influences the Waters Band, or was that just the style that the band played?
Oh, I was my dad had an extensive record collection, and he had all the Waters stuff. I met Turk when I was about 6 years old, and in fact, I have Turk made a washboard for me, and it says on it one of those small washboards, about
Sure.
so big. On the top, it says Turk Murphy Jr. on top, and I still have it to this day.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also had a chance. For a very short time, I ran my own band, the First Federal Jazz Band, and Jim Mayhack was my trombone player. Speaking of Turk.
Yeah, I worked with Jim in Jan Scobie's revival band, and she put a short festival together one year. I took Scobie's part. She didn't play. She played trumpet herself, but she didn't play in the band. But it was Bob Helm, Wally Rose, me, Mayhack, I forgot who the drummer was. I've forgotten who the other guys were. Jim Comins was the bass player. Excellent bass player. String bass.
Yeah.
That was up in San Francisco many years ago.
It's pretty amazing. There's some amazing names that you played with over the years. You know,
We're very, very fortunate. My idol, Louis Armstrong, without question. He to this day, I listen to him. I go, how the heck did he do that?
it's interesting. As a kid, and I mean when I was a kid, just starting playing trumpet, I would listen to him on television because I'm of that age. I was in high school in the 70s, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand because it sounded like he was cracking notes and he couldn't hang on to high notes. And as a young band trumpet player, I was thinking, I don't understand what the big deal is. And until I got older and heard what he was saying and how hard it was to do that, I didn't understand it. And he's my absolute idol now. But
I heard a recording when Carson first took over the Tonight Show. I saw one show, and I've been trying to find a copy of it ever since. It was the Battle of the Trumpets. It was Severinsen, Al Hurt, and Louis Armstrong. And they were playing Tiger Rag.
oh my.
Each of them took a solo in turn. And first went Severinsen, then went Hurt, and then went Louis. And Louis only played one note, a high G, and just syncopated that one note throughout the whole chorus. And that's all he played. It blew everybody's mind. It just blew. I saw that. It blew me away. Just one note. And I've been trying to find a copy of it. And I'm trying to think of Ed, the drummer on the Tonight Show.
You're talking about Shaughnessy?
I got to work with him a bit, and I brought that up. He remembered the performance, and he said that when they moved the show west, all the tapes were left behind, and probably they've disappeared.
Oh my.
That is just such a loss for the jazz community.
I really got connected in my heart to Louis, believe it or not, pretty late on. It was when he did his record with Oscar Peterson. And I would sit in my living room and crank that up. And it was back when, of course, stereo imaging was a big deal and having big speakers. And I would sit in the living room. It was like having him there, on his vocals especially. Um, that album made me really listen to his soul.
Yeah. Um, Louis said it. Louis said it better than anybody could, and there's another man that's Mr. Truth right there. It was Louis Armstrong. And I got to play with Wynton Marsalis in Marcillac, France, with the South Frisco. We were there. We were part of the Marcillac International Festival with 4 bands. It was Modern Jazz Quartet, Wynton Marsalis' quartet, South Frisco, and Ralph Sutton. And so, and it also happened to be the same week that the U.S. Embassy in Paris was bombed. You may remember that.
Sure.
We were in Marcillac, France, and from that time on, for the rest of our tour, we were there 2 weeks. From that time on, which is about midway through, was also the week that Gorbachev fell from power. And one of the bands in the festival was a Russian band. That's another whole story in itself, which is just amazing. But I got to sit and talk with Wynton a lot because we had a sound check at 7 and we didn't play till 1 o'clock in the morning. And Wynton went on after us at 2. Ralph opened at midnight, which in southern France, that's when, because it's so hot during the day, that's when the concerts all take place. They start about midnight and end about 4 a.m. Anyway, we were sequestered behind the stage. They actually built a prison, a cage around the back of the stage, and there were armed army officers every 4 feet, submachine guns.
Wow.
And we were not allowed out. They brought in trailers for us. It was too hot to sit in a trailer, but we had, all the facilities we needed. So we all sat around gabbing and talking with Wynton. Leon and I talked with Wynton for a good 2 hours. And his favorite musician is Louis Armstrong as well. He openly admitted to this day, he has yet to be able, and this is Wynton Marsalis talking, he has yet to be able to duplicate Louis's introduction to West End blues. And he knows he's using alternate fingering, but he can't figure out which of the alternate fingerings they are to pull it off. So, and it's to this day, well, he may have figured it out by now. We're talking 15 years ago when we did the Marcillac concert, or more, 20 maybe. But he subsequently put out a video about Louis Armstrong. I don't know if you've seen it or not. And if you don't, I can shoot you a copy of it. I have it. And Leon, being also his biggest fan, he's the biggest fan of Louis Armstrong also. Leon has an extensive collection of Louis's stuff, paraphernalia as well.
Oh, wow.
Mouthpieces and handkerchiefs and all kinds of stuff that he was given. In his connection with the Murphy Band, he ran their paths crossed several times. And Leon was able to supply Wynton with a lot of the material that he used in the video that he put together. And Leon is actually credited in the video. It's a really good video.
I'll have to see if I can find that. If I can't, I'll let you know, and I'll get you to shoot me a copy. But that sounds incredible.
It's a VHS. It's not on. It might be on disc now.
Yeah, I'm saying it might be online, depending on who. If I look hard enough.
I'd have to look up my.
Well, so what was your impression of Wynton? I mean, I know that he grew up in New Orleans, and his dad was a pianist, and his brothers are all players. But how was he as a person?
Very warm, very down to earth, generous guy. Very nice man. Not no ego at all. Just as mellow and as laid back as could be. It was funny. He's playing a $30,000 trumpet.
Yeah,
I've forgotten the name of it now.
Monet.
But yeah, it was given to him, and Leon and I were playing Match Getsons.
Right. Yeah, I remember the Eternal model cornet.
We're sitting there with our Getsons, and he's got this Monet trumpet. And he looks at the Getson and he goes, "I like that better than this Monet."
Oh.
So I'm going, boy, don't tell Monet that.
Yeah, he's an incredible player. I remember when he was doing, what was it? It was the Grammys, and he did the Haydn, ending on a double F. It's just not fair that somebody can do all of that, you know?
I don't know if I don't know how old he is now, but I'm sure he's kept this up. He's, of course, director of, what is it? The
Lincoln Center.
I don't know if he's been able to practice the 8 hours a day that he was when I met him, but he was playing 8 hours a day. And I found him to be just a great guy.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I came into the style very late on. I didn't come into the style until I got to college. And that was because Dan Barrett kidnapped me and force-fed me records. But I was kind of in that Orange County group of guys late, but they were my Brian and Dan and Jeff Beaumont and Steve Resnick and all these guys that were around in that area, that Orange County Mafia group.
They used to come to the Pizza Palace when I first joined the South Frisco in '71. And they were pimple-faced teenagers at that point. Larry Wright was part of it too.
Oh yeah.
In the front row, and just look up and stare at us. And I, you know, it's kind of uncomfortable. Here's Dan Barrett, who turns out to be one of the best trad trombone players in the world, as well as a darn good trumpet player.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but he also plays some tenor sax.
Yes,
he did when we were kids. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to keep telling you this, but don't sit back so far. I keep losing signal. I'm sorry. I should have. I just want this is. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was Dan.
Well, I was in the Back Bay Jazz Band with Dan, and we formed a little alliance back in the '70s. We called ourselves Rent-A-Brass. Dan Barrett, the two Dans. And we worked with Rick Fay at Busch Gardens. We worked at Disneyland. We worked with we'd sit in with Big Joe Turner at the Golden Bear.
Okay, sure. Huntington Beach.
Finish at Zuby's in Costa Mesa and then run over and sit in with Joe Turner. And he more or less gave us the name. He called us here. We'd walk in the door and he'd say on the microphone, "Here comes Rent-A-Brass," and we'd join his quartet and play until 2 a.m. We just had a great time. And what was a fascinating man to work with was Joe Turner. He kept time with a walking stick, and he'd sit on he was big. He fulfilled the shoes of being called big. And he was rather short. And he'd sit on it. When we met, he was in his 80s, I think, late 70s. And he'd sit there and he'd kick the tune off by pounding the walking stick into the floor. He was sitting on a stool the whole time. And then he'd start to sing, and he sang just great. Wonderful guy.
That's boy, I wish I don't have those kind of memories. I mean, like the guys I just talked about, all that young group that was sitting at the stage at Zuby's and looking up at you. I mean, those were the guys I came into the style with. But anything older than that, I mean, other than George, of course, George Probert, who was nice enough to befriend me, and one time he had me in the front line of Monrovia. He had June on bass and back, and he said, "You want to come play the band?" And I said, well, first time he called me, he asked me if I wanted to play second cornet. I said, "Who's playing first?" He goes, "Me." and he was on sax, obviously. And then I guess it was for one of the Orange County festivals. He had me sit in the front line on tuba, and there was a trombone, and I think it was Ted Thomas and a bunch of people. And I, trying to find a line that doesn't interfere with bass of the trombone player was a trick. But anyway, those are the guys that brought me into the thing.
Robert I met through Raggio, and I used to go sit in on Wednesdays at Disney Studios, Stage 6. And that's when I met Alec Wire and Thomas.
His dad, right?
His dad, Frank.
Ted and Frank, there
Frank.
we go.
And Probert, of course, was in the band, and Ward Kimball, who was.
Speaking of trains.
Speaking of trains, a whole full-sized one in his backyard. And I also through Dave Bourne, I got to meet Gordon Mitchell, and then I got to meet all of the guys that had come out here from the East Coast to live that were from New Orleans. Gordon had formed a band called the Resurrection Marching Band. And one of the criterion was you had to be from New Orleans and you had to be a black player. And so when I joined the Resurrection Band, I was replacing some guys who couldn't march anymore, like Andy Blakeney. But I got to know Andy, and I got to know all the guys in the Resurrection Marching Band real well. And Barney Bigard was in that band. Wow, the who's who of jazz was in that band, all mostly retired.
Amazing.
Oh. And Barney, by the way, interesting story about Barney. He wrote Mood Indigo.
I didn't know that.
And he didn't get credit for it.
Okay, he's not credited for it, right?
He is now. But at the time he wasn't. And when I met him, he was arguing with the Ellington estate over the rights of the music. And it's to my understanding that he finally did get publishing rights to it.
Yeah, I thought I remember seeing Strayhorn's name on that. But
well, Strayhorn wrote most of the stuff in the Ellington band. I mean, let's face it. But back in that day, if you worked for a band leader, generally, if you wrote something, the band leader got the credit for it.
Right.
That happened more than once. Right?
Now, I'm going to ask you a stupid interviewer question, so forgive me. But what is your one favorite record or cut for jazz? I do have one, but I'm curious to hear yours.
Oh, geez, it's a cut that Louis did with Fletcher Henderson Band, and I can't think of the name of it. I have to go look at the album. Louis does some pretty amazing stuff. Jeez.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot here. For me, it's Louis' "When You're Smiling."
Oh, that's a great one. And do you have the alternate takes of that, by the way?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I can give you those.
Where he's up in the upper register just made me cry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to think of it. It'll come to me. It'll come to midnight tonight.
That's okay. We'll plug it in later. We'll fix it in the mix.
It's everything. So much that Louis did was just amazing. That I mean, there wasn't hardly anything he didn't do correctly, to my way of calling it. And he did everything with such finesse and such soul that you can almost just pick one off the shelf blindfolded, and you're going to enjoy listening to it. Period.
Yeah.
Standards of West End blues and all of that. That's the Hot Five stuff. All of that is everybody knows those. But the other stuff he did when he was playing with the big bands with Fletcher Henderson. Of course, everybody knows the Creole Jazz Band stuff with King Oliver. But the stuff with Fletcher Henderson, and he'd take the breaks, and you go, how the heck did he do that? How in the world did
I'm gonna have to pay more attention to those recordings. I'm not hip.
well, you can't see much. my LPs, but my CDs. But I got about that many Louis CDs.
Yeah.
I can't say I have everything he did, but I have just about everything he did, and a lot of outtakes that are now being released, which you can find.
Yeah, I've got to go. I'm still, majority of my collection is still vinyl, although I have a growing CD. Right, just if I have it on vinyl, I tend to be really reluctant about picking it up on CD. So anyway, I'll check all of that out.
The outtakes are the ones that are showing up on the CDs. My vinyl collection is sitting in Robbie Rhodes' garage. It's about 10,000 records there.
Oh, there you go. I should have. Robbie. We can get back on him again, but it's incredible. So, what's the future for Titanic here?
That's a good question. I ponder that all the time because the music market has all but the live music market right now. It's dried up. We had several gigs lined up, and they've all canceled. We're supposed to play the San Diego Jazz Festival, and they're hoping to hold it, but there's no
guarantees.
I've not played, I've not had a gig since January, basically. And trying to keep your chops up in the living room doesn't work very well.
No, I understand. That's one of the things I've really been grateful for with the Cherry Willow Band is up until the lockdown, I had a constant Friday.
Yeah. The lockdown's one thing. The other thing is I live here in Big Bear, and it's an hour and a half to get off the mountain to get down the hill to get going to wherever a gig is. So I'm off to a half-hour drive one way.
By the way, I've turned down a couple of things you've asked me to do up there, and it's only because I'm getting my health isn't doing well, and I really have second thoughts about driving that mountain at night, going to or from, and so I apologize for that. I hope that doesn't keep us from playing together again, but I just have to arrange rides. Like last time I went up with CJ, but
Yeah, well, no, I understand that completely. I have the same. I hate driving the mountain road at night. And there's too many. I've lived here over 20 years, and every week somebody gets killed on that road. Every week, and I don't want to be one of those numbers. When I do bring musicians up to play for the wine walk and whatnot, we usually bulk them up here for overnight. So you get an overnight stay, and you can drive down in the morning with no traffic, and you're rested. So if and when we ever get up and running again, we were supposed to be playing on the lake on the Miss Liberty. You were on that, weren't you?
Yeah.
On one. This summer, all summer. But 12 or 13 games. They're all canceled. Miss Liberty has yet to sail. So,
well, I think that I hope, let's put it that way. I pray that we get back at it here soon, and we get a handle on all of this stuff. But that's one of the reasons I started the channel, was to connect with people that I'm not getting to see.
I'm grateful that you have. This is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this.
I'm glad.
Yeah, the music community is too big a part of my life, especially in Southern California, to have it just evaporate. And this live music is as much as it is the audience, the listener. The people that are missing it the most are the audience.
Yeah.
It's a give and take relationship. And they're suffering just as much as we are as musicians, not being able to get out there and perform. They're suffering just as much not being able to participate in hearing us.
It's
I get
true.
people coming up to me all the time. When's your next gig? When's your next gig? I don't have one. Which I've never been able to say that in my life. Now I'm being forced to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's especially true of the demographic that we serve, and the people who are our fans. For a lot of them, it's their life. is the social gatherings surrounding our music.
That's correct. Take your jazz clubs. There hasn't been a jazz club meeting since you just did one viral, a virtual meeting, didn't you?
Yeah, we just did one for the Duarte Society for the Preservation of Dixieland Jazz.
Were there people there?
No, no, it was the six of us and the people who were running the cameras. And actually, the venue didn't allow us to have more than 10 people in the room. So it was one of those things. But well, what happened with that is I have another channel up called Daniel Zeilinger on YouTube, and it's slideshows. And I put it up originally for the fans of the Curly's gig, and I put up slideshows with some recordings that Mike Oltz had made on his phone for us, just flying slides over the top of it for our fans, and we're going to send them out to the fans. We found out the easiest way to share them was for me to post them on YouTube, and then the fans could just access them. And that led to me putting up slideshows and memories of Misbehaving and of and 10th Avenue, some of the other bands I've done. So there's a whole slew of recordings and slideshows now on that channel. And then this channel is totally separate.
By the
just
way,
for these conversations.
I'll interject. Armstrong, Fletcher Henderson, Fireworks. Have you heard it?
No, I will.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's got to be at a 130 clip also. Fireworks.
I'm making note of it as we speak. Cool. I'm sorry. Aaron, can you respond to Mel? She just wanted to know when I was going to be home. That's my son. I'm talking about my daughter.
Why do you need to respond to that yet? You're still in an interview.
I know. So yeah, thankfully, my son is the one who's been doing all the producing and lining up schedules for me on this. And it was his idea, actually. You know, he traveled a few of my tours that I've done and things, and just met these people and thought this would be something to keep me busy and out of the house. So.
I think you and I met when you were playing with the Frogs, and I subbed for what's his name?
For Mike. Well, it could be, or it could have been when I was with Misbehaving, either one of those.
No, because Brian was the trumpet
That's
player.
right. That's right. So it could have been. It was probably with the Frogs. I was their last tuba player. In fact, some of the guys have told me that I tend to be a band killer because as soon as I join them, they fold. But we're not going to talk about that.
I was their last cornet player, so let's put it that way.
No, an interesting aside is while Mike was having his problems, I actually did a few of the festivals as the trumpet player for that band,
Okay.
Which was a real experience, as you know, playing with that band.
Yes.
But what made it even worse is I was also playing with 10th Avenue. And in some cases, they were almost the same band at one time. And I was playing back to back, playing 10th Avenue on tuba and then playing a set on trumpet with the Frogs and going back and forth.
My set of the two bands was
And I lived on Power Bars and Gatorade, and that was a mistake.
You know, Brian, talking about Make Misbehaving, Brian is one of my unsung heroes. He's one of the finest trumpet players in the country. And those who know that he's one of the finest.
Absolutely. And a great guy on top of it.
Of course. He's done both of our albums for Titanic. He never did any of the South Frisco. We did 15 albums with South Frisco. And they were all done at Bay Records up in San Francisco or Oakland. And they were almost all of them on Stomp Off. We did one with Ted Schaefer, for Ted Schaefer, and the rest were all Stomp Off. We were 1 and 2 albums a year with Stomp Off, which was an experience because aside from our normal repertoire, which we took care of in the first 5 recordings, we meshed out into different stuff. And the arrangements were typically difficult enough that we couldn't perform them on stage live. I'm thinking specifically of one album called Got Everything. And everybody has asked me, when are you going to sing "Got Everything" again? I said, we can't, because it's a band vocal, and we're all all the lead horns are doing the vocal, but on the album we had overdubbed the vocal over some background stuff that we all played. So we can't do both sing and play at the same time. So we never performed it live. Steamboat Stomp, we recorded that and never played it again.
Wow.
And there's just a slew of them that we never played again because.
So those are real collector items.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of my other favorite Louis is my favorite horn player. One of my favorite composers is Jelly Roll Morton. The man was a genius. And I have all of his works, and I have all of his music. And I have his big, you can see it up there probably,
Sure.
biography of him. And that's over there is his The Life and Times of Jelly Roll Morton. It's a nine CD set of most of his recordings, including the unedited 1932 interview for the Library of Congress on the history of jazz, where he holds no bar. He doesn't hold any bars about using whatever language he wants.
Huh.
Alan Lomax had a heck of a time getting it out on 78 and getting it in his book because he had to edit it so much. Every other word was blankety blank, and it's all on there. And
Wow.
The lyrics he sings, maybe Des Dunes Blues. He sings a set of lyrics he just can't sing in public. Can't sing it.
I would love to hear that. If you want to shoot me a WAV file of one of those, that'd be great.
It's raunchy. It's plain raunchy. And but the interview with Alan Lomax is just priceless. Because Alan is about as straight-laced as you can possibly be as an interviewer, and Jelly Roll is just running all over him.
That's wild.
And this is 1938, I think, or maybe he moved to New York in 32, so it'll be 38, yeah. So yeah, so my favorite, Ellington, I like Ellington in the 30s at the Cotton Club. I like very much his brass section. He had, I think, probably had claim to some of the best trumpet players and trombone players at the time.
Yeah.
They did some Bragging and Brass is an incredible piece of music. If you've ever heard it.
Yeah, I'm a big Ellington fan myself.
Well, you know Bragging and Brass then. And I stole Bubber Miley's and Cootie Williams' type mute work. I stole that from them. I just listened to it and listened to it and listened to it, and I didn't invent it. I'm known for doing it, but I didn't invent it. I stole it.
Sure. I think I tend to think the best things are things we've borrowed.
Yes.
But hey, listen, Dan, we've kind of come to the end of the idea here. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
My pleasure.
You're somebody who I've enjoyed playing with and have always respected enormously. And, I always wonder who's going to accept and who isn't. If you have any influence over Mike Baird, tell him to get on the channel.
I will. And I just talking about Mike Baird, he's one of the sweetest guys and very smart fellow, Mr. Blues. And if you've ever heard him play Burgundy Street, I think he does it as good as George Lewis, who I got to play with, by the way. I did, and I have pictures of it to prove it. So.
Oh, I believe anything you say. I'm that gullible. No, I mean I'm that trusting.
No, I did. When I was with the Calgary Junction Golden Redeemer Jazz Band, Sandy McCone was the leader, and he was a big George Lewis fan and brought George Lewis up to Concord, Massachusetts from New Orleans. Kid Thomas was in the band. Jim Robinson was the trombone player.
Okay.
And of course George Lewis. So I got to hang out with those guys for a week while they were touring Boston, and got to jam with them. And George Lewis had the longest fingers I've ever seen of any one person. They were like spider legs. And he played his clarinet, he held it like this.
Hmm.
It's an Alba system, of course. And he just got marvelous sound and tone out of it. But what I was alluding to was that George Lewis is known for Burgundy Street Blues, but I think Mike Baer is more powerful and more soulful than George Lewis.
I love Mike's playing. Yeah. So, as we come to the end here, you have any final thoughts?
No, let's get back to playing.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
The audience can wear a face mask. I can cut a hole in mine. And you might have a little problem with this.
I'm usually okay as long as I don't have to wear a straw hat.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, I did that Disneyland long enough with the Banjo Kings.
But it always hits the bell. You know, So I'm going to do a little outro here. And I want to thank you so much for doing this. And this is Dan Zeilinger with Trad Jazz Today. If you like what you've heard, I think it'd be a wise decision to click subscribe in your on your YouTube channel. And we're going to have a lot more of these coming up. So we'll see you next time. Thank you all for watching Trad Jazz Today with Dan Zeilinger. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Videos come out every Wednesday and Friday.